today we're going to talk about the Alpha Pin. It's a board that we've had in the line for like 2 years or so. Little about the history of it. I had an old Clark foam blank from like pre-2005 when they closed, and I had it upstairs, and it had some damage in the nose, and I was like, what am I going to do with this thing? And I was like, just got kind of inspired about making sort of a mid-range that kind of is inspired by a longboard, I guess you could say. Sort of like a little bit like a Skip Fry, sort of that San Diego style board, with the wide point way forward and the soft rail, like in the narrower tail. So yeah, I got kind of inspired by that. So I shaped the board, and I kind of was making it like a longboard, and it came out kind of thick, and I rode it, and the original one was 710, and I loved the board. I rode it out at a big day at Grandview of all places, and it was super, like a big day out there. It was pretty rare with shape, and I had the funnest time. It's like a kind of a board you really ride off the outline, meaning you really ride, it's like the wide point's very distinct up forward here. The tail, it's just like draws in from that wide point all the way to the tail. So you're really riding off the outline. So it's a really unique kind of experience. The idea was to kind of cater to the longboard surfer that wanted to ride something shorter, but really liked the feeling of like driving off the outline and the paddling, the flat rocker, just like where you could just transition from your single fin longboard to something like this for bigger waves and stuff. It's just kind of did the job. But the thing I did find over time is that people complained about the rails being kind of too thick and chunky, so I've been slowly taking the rails down in the last 4 months, trying to get that like perfect spot where I feel like it's working really well now. Not that it didn't work good before, but now I feel like I'm just fine tuning it even more and more. So it still has the same feel. So basically, the bottom is the most interesting part about this board. It's kind of a complex bottom, more complex than most of my boards, because most of my boards I try to make very neutral and smooth, and like everything is just balanced and nothing too extreme. But with this board, I wanted to put some extreme elements because I wanted to still give it some performance. So, if you really wanted to turn it hard, you can. Because the tail's so narrow, I added a lot of V. So the idea with that was like you're driving off the outline, and if it's so stiff if you try to drive it into the outline too much, that the V, it lays up on the V, and then it'll turn a lot easier. So having that V, this heavy V, really helped that turning. And then kind of the transition's pretty abrupt, and then it goes to a concave up here, and then it goes to like a roll, pretty heavy roll to break the water up. So it's super smooth. And this rail is very turned, it's kind of like a super soft rail, and just sort of like that Skip Fry sort of midsfin kind of rail. Kind of just really breaks the water up. It smooths out the entry, so it just like any kind of chop or anything on the wave, it's just like plowing through. It's just kind of feels like a longboard in the front half. So yeah, I really like it. I think the thing that is a little tricky, that I found, that I adapted to pretty quick once I figured it out, knowing that V was going to make this transition from a concave to a V that so abruptly, it's sort of like you got to go from that wide point drive and then kind of step back and then get ready for it to just turn. It's not like a roundhouse board. You're not doing that kind of turn, but it'll do like a pretty abrupt turn, and then you kind of got to transition it back up into the face and sort of in trim. So it's an acquired taste. It's not like a lot of the other boards I make. It's got some quirks to it that you definitely to figure out. And if you like that kind of board, this board is really fun, because you just won't believe how smooth and fast it is when you're driving and trimming on it. So yeah, that's that. And so the other thing is, it's pretty thick. There's a lot of foam in it, so at like that 7.6 sort of mid-range size, that's quite a bit of board. But like if you're coming off a longboard, you definitely your foam's going to be your friend, and your transition from your longboard to this will be really easy. And then also the single fin is like the main one we started out with, but we've been moving towards the quad, just to give it a little bit more performance, and it's a little bit more responsive in the turn. Probably not as fast as the twin single fin, but yeah. So that's pretty much the Alpha Pen.